New optimism tonight for a compromise deal over border security funding, but the clock is still ticking to another possible government shutdown. And that's because there's a major change in the House this year, a new rule that members must post the text of bills a full 72 hours before a vote. Senior Capitol Hill producer Chad Pergram explains.
Americans expect members of Congress to read what they're voting on, be it changes to the nation's health care system or a barrier along our southern border. You never know what's tucked deep inside that legislation. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi stoked the country's ire in 2010 as Congress stumbled toward approving Obamacare.
We have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Republicans spied an opening. Read the bills became their mantra.
Have you read the bill? Have you read the reconciliation bill?
They blasted Democrats for President Obama's 1,132-page economic stimulus plan. A climate change measure clocked in at 1,200 pages. And this is Obamacare.
Have you read the manager's amendment? Hell no, you haven't.
That same year, Republicans pledged to make a change, requiring 3 days to read bills if they won the House. Well, not quite. A closer reading of the GOP rule only mandated the House post some bills for parts of 3 days, sometimes described as a 24-hour and 2-second rule. In other words, you could post a bill at 11:59 p.m. on a Tuesday and vote as early as 12:0001 on a Thursday.
We need to do better. We need to restore some integrity to this institution, and that was the point of some of the changes in the rules package.
Now that Nancy Pelosi has the gavel again, Democrats say they really will read the bills before they vote. The new rule says most garden variety bills must be available for all to peruse for a full 72 hours before debate and vote.
I think it's just the fair way to proceed. People ought to know what they're voting on.
When the House met in this room in the 19th century, Statuary Hall of the Capitol, bills were only a page long, and there was only one copy. Some members were illiterate, so a House clerk read the bills out loud so everyone could hear the legislation. The House is supposed to do that today, but always waives that rule. In college, just because a professor assigns the book doesn't mean that students read it. And the same is the case with reading the bills in Congress. On Capitol Hill, Chad Pergram, Fox News.
The battle at the border, which continues. Remember that bipartisan conference committee on Capitol Hill still meeting. They have a big deadline of this Friday to come up with some sort of a border deal. Otherwise, we are headed for another partial government shutdown.
Yeah, the president weighing in yesterday on his thoughts as it progresses. He said this. He said, Democrats just don't seem to want border security. They're fighting border agents' recommendations. If you believe news reports, they're not offering much for the wall. They look to be making this a campaign issue. The wall will get built one way or the other.
Yeah, so now people are wondering, too, will he cave on the number? What is that final number going to be? What is he willing to accept? And like we've been saying, will it wind up being a deal where everyone's disappointed, where, you know, people on the right feel like Trump didn't dig his heels in, you know, enough, where people on the left feel like, well, you know, the Democrats gave Trump too much? Bottom line is these two sides need to come together. And one of the reasons is because if you look at Jim Clifton, the chairman and CEO of Gallup, he came out, there was a poll, and it said 42 million seekers of citizenship or asylum are watching to determine exactly when and how is the best time to make the move. This suggests that open borders could potentially attract 42 million Latin Americans. A full 5 million who are planning to move in the next 12 months say they are moving to the United States. So Gallup conducted this poll and put it out there to stress, look, you know, we're talking about an emergency situation. Many folks on the left are ignoring that. They're saying it's a manufactured crisis. When you look at these numbers, you realize we do have to figure out what to do with these people. We do have to figure out a plan moving forward. Now or never.
Yes. Right, because what they're saying there, Gallup, is millions more coming to America from Latin America, migrants, some legal, some trying to get in illegally. And so Democrats continue to say it's a manufactured crisis, and even though we may have up to 42 million more people coming from Latin America in the next few years.
5 million in 12 months.
Crazy.
We have a porous border, terrible asylum laws that don't make any sense. I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with you. You say that they need to come together. I don't think they can come together. The left and the right on this issue are fundamentally opposed. The middle ground solution is going to be some swamp garbage compromise that gives a little bit of funding
the president
here.
alluded to that in his tweet about very little money. We're hearing maybe $1.2 to $1.9 billion. That is pretty paltry.
You can't be at a
compared to the
standstill,
$25 billion that he requested, that everyone agreed on just years ago. He came down to 5.7. 1.3 is what's always kind of been in there with serious restrictions. To go up to 1.9 is not a win. That's a loss.
Yeah.
So if you can't get to that compromise, declare the national emergency that is within your constitutional authority and build the wall. I think that's how a lot of people feel, because the Democrats are totally obstinate. This is a form of resistance. This committee, I mean, I have actually, I'm going to go almost zero, completely zero faith that a conference committee is going to come up with something meaningful.
The fear, though, is that he will suffer politically if he does that. Everyone's worried, you know, he
but
does need to run for re-election.
Of course, thinking in my mind.
It is, absolutely, and I think folks on the right...
He doesn't suffer from bold stances.
I think folks on the right are very much with you and do feel that it's now or never and that a national emergency is fully within his purview to do. I do think he's trying to walk a fine line, though, there of wanting to be re-elected, not wanting... You look at some of these policies coming out from people on the left. I mean, it's getting wild and crazy out there. And I think in the back of his mind, he's saying, we got a long-term battle here. This isn't just about today, but it's about tomorrow, and it's about, 2020.
Right. He makes a fair point about the president digging in, taking bold stands, but at the end of the day, also campaigned on the art of the deal, and is going to have to get something to show and take to voters, not just in his fellow Republican voters, but reaching out to independent voters.
But once you build the wall, you dare the left to tear it down. That's why they hate it so much. You build this wall, and it becomes popular and effective.